Today we are going to see about savable data pages. Savable data pages are also editable data pages, but with the only addition of having some data save options section here. After getting some data through some data sources, you can edit the data based on your case, and you can save back that data back to the SOR tables or external database tables using this data save options. That is the specialty and benefit of using savable data page. Consider a business use case wherein in your HR onboarding application, after collecting employee details and assigning an employee ID to him, HR needs to assign his empty seating location in that office building. So to be able to use that, there is a database table which maps current seat ID, office location and employee ID. So for the selected office location from the drop down, we can retrieve all the rows from the database table whose employee ID is empty, meaning that the seat is empty, vacant seats. So vacant seats we can get in this drop down. Once the HR selects any particular vacant seat ID, then the database has to be filled with the employee ID in the row corresponding to that seat ID, so that this seat will not be allocated to newly joining employees. So once HR selects the seat ID, in that row for that seat ID, employee ID will be populated. Now this is the business use case. To achieve that, prior to Pega 7.4, when savable data pages were not there, we used to write a editable data page to retrieve this data, and after selecting the seat ID, we need to pass this seat ID as a parameter to an activity, and in that activity we need to create a temporary page, and we need to update the seat ID value in the temporary page. We need to call obj save in order to save this data to the database. But from Pega 7.4 onwards, Pega has introduced a concept called savable data page, wherein directly this modified or edited data from the UI you can save back to the SOR or back to the Pega local tables or external database tables as well. The overall outlook appears like this. Firstly, we will be reading data from the system of record, which can be an external database table or local database table or web service or a third-party system through a connector. Next, we will show the data in the UI, and we will modify some of the data in our application. That modified data we will put back in the database by using savable data page, by using the save plans available in the savable data page. So if you keep mode as editable, then you can see this data save options section will disappear. Same is the case for read only. Only when mode is savable, that is this data on this database is savable back to the database, then only data save options section appears.